They called them the Terrors of Thornfield Manor, three identical 5-year-old boys who'd made 17 nannies quit in 6 months. But when Amara walked through those iron gates with her head held high, she wasn't there to survive them. She was there to save them. The employment agency receptionist looked at me like I just volunteered for a suicide mission. "Ms. Johnson, are you absolutely certain?" Her manicured nails tapped nervously against the manila folder containing my application. "The Whitmore triplets are challenging, very challenging. We've had 17 nannies quit in the last 6 months. Some lasted hours. One lasted 15 minutes. I straightened in my chair, meeting her concerned gaze with the quiet confidence I'd learned raising my 3 younger siblings after Mama died. "I'm certain. They've been called unmanageable, destructive, possibly disturbed. Mr. Whitmore is desperate. That's the only reason he's considering candidates with your background." She said it delicately, but I heard what she meant. No fancy credentials, no expensive childcare certifications. Just a 28-year-old black woman from Southside Chicago with a community college degree and 10 years of experience raising kids who actually needed raising. "What happened to their mother?" I asked. The receptionist's expression shifted to something like pity. "Car accident, 3 years ago. The boys were 2. They don't remember her, but Mr. Whitmore, well, he's never recovered. He buries himself in work, travels constantly for business. The boys are essentially being raised by a rotating cast of terrified staff." "So they're not terrors," I said quietly. "They're traumatized children acting out because they've lost their mother and their father's emotionally absent. And everyone who's supposed to care for them keeps abandoning them, confirming that they're unlovable." She blinked. "That's actually a very insightful analysis." "That's not insight. That's just recognizing pain when you see it." I stood, smoothing down my simple navy dress, the nicest thing I owned, bought specifically for this interview. "When do I start?" Thornfield Manor loomed at the end of a tree-lined drive in the suburbs of Connecticut, all stone and ivy and old money. The kind of place that whispered, "You don't belong here," to people who look like me. My 15-year-old Honda Civic looked ridiculous parked next to the fountain in the circular driveway. But I'd learned a long time ago that belonging wasn't about what you drove or wore. It was about knowing your worth and refusing to apologize for taking up space. The housekeeper who answered the door was a stern-looking white woman in her 60s named Mrs. Patterson. She looked me up and down with barely concealed skepticism. "You're the new nanny?" "Amara Johnson. Nice to meet you." I extended my hand. She shook it limply. "Mr. Whitmore is in London on business. He won't return until Friday. You'll be on your own with the boys." She said it like a warning, maybe even a threat. "Your quarters are in the West Wing, 3rd floor. The nursery is on the 2nd floor, East Wing. The boys are currently in the playroom with Miss Rodriguez, who will be leaving as soon as you're settled." "What happened to Miss Rodriguez?" "Paint in her hair, super glue on her phone, a snake, fake, thankfully, in her bed. She gave notice this morning. She's only staying until you arrive." Mrs. Patterson's mouth pressed into a thin line. "The boys are spirited." "The boys are grieving," I corrected gently. Her expression flickered with something, surprise, maybe respect. "Perhaps, but grief or not, they've terrorized every caregiver who's walked through that door." "What makes you think you'll be different?" "Because I'm not here to control them. I'm here to see them." I followed her through marble hallways, lined with expensive art and fresh flowers. Beautiful and cold, like a museum where nobody actually lived. We passed a formal dining room with a table that could seat 20, a library with floor-to-ceiling books that looked untouched, a sitting room with furniture too pristine to suggest children ever played there. "The boys are not permitted in most of the house," Mrs. Patterson explained. "Mr. Whitmore prefers their activities confined to the nursery wing and playroom. Too many valuables elsewhere." My jaw tightened. These babies were being treated like inconveniences in their own home, kept separate from their father's real life, like dirty secrets. We reached the playroom, and I heard them before I saw them. Shouting, crashing, the sound of something breaking. Mrs. Patterson winced. "That would be a vase! 17th century! Mr. Whitmore will be furious." She opened the door to reveal chaos. Three identical little boys with white blonde hair and ice blue eyes were in the midst of destroying what had probably been an elegant playroom. One was using a wooden block to hammer at an antique side table. Another was systematically pulling books off shelves and ripping out pages. The third was standing on a velvet chair, throwing toy cars at an enormous window. In the corner, a young Latina woman, Miss Rodriguez, sat with her head in her hands, tears streaming down her face. "I can't do this anymore," she sobbed. "They won't listen. They won't stop. They're monsters." The word hung in the air. All three boys froze, and I saw it. The moment children hear themselves called something terrible and start to believe it. "They're not monsters," I said clearly, stepping into the room. "They're children who need to be seen." Three pairs of identical blue eyes turned to me, assessing, calculating, preparing their next attack on the new adult who dared enter their territory. I knelt down, making myself their height, and smiled. "Hi, I'm Miss Amara. What are your names?" Silence. The boys exchanged glances, some kind of telepathic triplet communication. Finally, the one who'd been ripping books spoke. "I'm Chaos." The one with the wooden block grinned. "I'm Destruction." The one throwing cars added, "I'm Terror." "Interesting names," I said calmly, "but I don't think those are the names your mama gave you." The temperature in the room dropped. The boys' expressions shifted from mischievous to cold. "Our mama's dead," the first one said flatly, "and Daddy doesn't care, so we can be whoever we want." My heart cracked, but I kept my voice steady. "You're right. Your mama's not here, and that's the hardest, saddest thing in the world. But I bet she gave you beautiful names because she loved you, and I'd really like to know what they are." More silence. Then slowly the smallest one, the book ripper, whispered, "I'm Jasper." "Jasper," I repeated softly. "That's a strong name. Nice to meet you, Jasper." The block wielder hesitated, then mumbled, "Mason." "Mason. I like that." The car thrower was last, his jaw set stubbornly. But finally, "Miles. Miles, Mason, and Jasper," I said, committing them to memory, looking for the tiny differences that would let me tell them apart. Miles had a small freckle near his left ear. Mason's hair parted slightly different. Jasper had the saddest eyes I'd ever seen. "Those are perfect names." "Thank you for trusting me with them." Miss Rodriguez stood shakily. "They're all yours. Good luck. You'll need it." After she fled, Mrs. Patterson cleared her throat. "I'll leave you to settle in. Dinner's at 6. The boys eat in the nursery. You'll find their routine posted on the refrigerator, though I doubt they'll follow it." Then I was alone with three 5-year-old boys who'd spent the last 6 months perfecting the art of making adults disappear. "So," I said, still at their level, "who wants to tell me what's really going on? If you were hired to care for children everyone called monsters, would you see them as problems to fix or people to understand? What's the difference? Drop your thoughts below." The first test came within 20 minutes. I'd been given a tour of the nursery wing, 3 separate bedrooms for the boys. They refused to share. A bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in, and a spacious common area with every toy imaginable, but an atmosphere of profound loneliness. "Okay," I said, surveying the disaster. "Clothes everywhere. Toys broken. Walls marked with crayon. How about we work together to clean this up before dinner?" 3 identical stares. Then, as if choreographed, all 3 boys grabbed toys and threw them across the room. "No," Miles said flatly. "We don't clean," Mason added. "We make messes," Jasper finished. "That's what monsters do." I sat down on the floor, cross-legged, and pulled out my phone. "Well, if we're not cleaning, mind if I make a call? I need to talk to my little sister." This clearly wasn't the reaction they'd expected. Confused, they watched as I FaceTimed my sister Nia, a college sophomore who'd practically raised herself while I worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat. "Hey, Amara!" Her face filled the screen, bright and beautiful. "How's the fancy new job?" "It's interesting. I'm here with Miles, Mason, and Jasper. They're 5. Boys, say hi to my sister Nia." The triplets inched closer, curious despite themselves. "Hi," Nia waved. "Whoa, triplets. That's so cool. Are you guys identical?" "Yes," Jasper said quietly. "That must be fun. Do you ever trick people by switching places?" Miles's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Sometimes. Nice. I wish I had a twin to switch places with when I have boring classes. She laughed. What are you guys into? Video games? Sports? And just like that, my brilliant sister had them talking. About their favorite shows, they all loved the same superhero cartoon. About how they could always tell each other apart even when adults couldn't. Miles bit his nails, Mason had a cowlick, Jasper hummed when he was thinking. About the treehouse their dad had promised to build but never had time for. After we hung up, the boys were different. Less guarded, more curious. Why'd you call your sister? Mason asked. Because I wanted you to meet someone who matters to me. Someone real, not fake professional. If we're going to spend time together, I want you to know I'm a real person, not just another nanny who'll disappear. Everyone disappears, Jasper said matter-of-factly. Everyone except family, Miles corrected. You're not our family, Mason said, but there was a question in it, like he wanted to be wrong. Not yet, I agreed. But family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about who shows up and stays, and I'm planning to stay. That's what they all say, Miles shot back. Then we glue their shoes together or put salt in their coffee and they leave. Why do you do that? I asked gently. Silence. Then Jasper, the gentlest of the three, whispered, because if they're going to leave anyway, it's better if we make them leave. That way it's our choice, not theirs. Oh, these babies. These brilliant, broken, self-protecting babies. I understand that, I said. When my mama died, I was 13. I had to take care of my three younger siblings, Nia, Marcus, and little Zoe. And every time a social worker came around, I'd be so mean to them. Rude, difficult. Know why? Three heads shook. Because I was terrified they'd split us up, put us in different foster homes. So I figured if I was awful enough, maybe they'd just leave us alone together. Turns out being mean didn't protect me. It just made me lonely. Know what did protect me? What? Jasper breathed. Finding people who saw past my anger to the scared kid underneath. People who didn't leave when things got hard. I looked at each of them. Your mama died, and that's the worst thing. And your daddy's so sad he doesn't know how to be there for you. And every adult who's supposed to care for you keeps leaving. So you figured out that if you're scary enough, you're in control. But baby boys, you're not scary. You're scared. And I'm not going anywhere. Miles's eyes were shining with tears he refused to shed. You don't know that. You're right. I don't know what tomorrow brings. But I know I've never quit anything important in my life. And you three, you're important. That's when Mason did it, pulled a small plastic container from his pocket and opened it, revealing a very realistic-looking spider. This is where most of them scream, he said, walking toward me with the spider. I held out my hand. Can I see? Shocked, he placed it in my palm. I examined it carefully. Good quality. Where'd you get it? Amazon. We have Daddy's credit card. Smart. Though probably not legal, I handed it back. Here's the thing, guys. You can test me. You can glue my shoes, put spiders in my bed, salt in my coffee. But I grew up with three siblings in a tiny apartment where the heat didn't always work and the roaches were real. Your pranks, they're amateur hour. For the first time, I saw it. Genuine smiles. Small, tentative, but real. Challenge accepted, Miles said. Bring it on, I replied. That night, after a dinner where they actually sat at the table and ate, mostly because I'd asked them to teach me how to use chopsticks, and they'd found my incompetence hilarious. I sat with each boy individually while they got ready for bed. Jasper's room was filled with books, the ones he hadn't destroyed. You like stories? He nodded. But I can't read them yet. Mama used to read to me, but now, how about I read to you, every night if you want? His eyes went wide. Really? Really, pick a book. He chose Where the Wild Things Are. As I read about Max and his journey to where the wild things were, Jasper curled into my side. Miss Amara, he whispered as I finished. Yes, baby? Do you think we're wild things? Things that need to be sent away? I set the book down and looked at him seriously. I think you're children who've had to be strong in ways children shouldn't have to be strong. But no, you're not wild things that need sending away. You're boys who need to be loved. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, can you read another one? I read 3 more before he finally fell asleep. Mason's room was full of building blocks, elaborate structures half finished, abandoned. You like building? I like destroying, he corrected, but his eyes lingered on a partially constructed castle. What were you building there? Nothing. Looks like something to me. Looks like a castle. Can I help? He hesitated, then nodded. We spent 40 minutes building together, and I learned that Mason was brilliant. Spatial reasoning off the charts. Able to visualize complex structures. This wasn't a destructive child. This was a creative one with no outlet. Why do you knock down your buildings? I asked as we placed the final tower. Because someone else will anyway. Everything good gets wrecked eventually. Not always, I said. Sometimes good things last, but only if we protect them, guard them, believe they're worth keeping. He looked at our castle. Do you think it's worth keeping? I think it's beautiful, and I think the person who built it is pretty special. He didn't respond, but he didn't knock it down either. Miles' room had a keyboard in the corner, covered in dust. You play? Used to. Mama taught me. But Daddy took away my lessons after she died? He nodded, jaw tight. He said music made him sad, reminded him of her. I bet it did. But I bet she'd want you to keep playing. Can you show me something? Reluctantly, he sat at the keyboard and played, a simple melody, but hauntingly beautiful. When he finished, there were tears on his cheeks. That was your mama's favorite song, wasn't it? How did you know? Because you played it like it was a prayer. He broke then, 5 years old and sobbing like the world had ended, which for him, it had. I pulled him into my lap and held him while he cried for the mother he'd lost and the father who'd emotionally abandoned him, and the impossible weight of being a child in a house full of ghosts. I miss her so much, he gasped between sobs. And Daddy won't talk about her. It's like she never existed, like we're not supposed to remember. You can remember her with me, I whispered. Tell me about her. What was she like? And Miles talked, fragments of memory from a 2-year-old's perspective. How she smelled like vanilla, how she sang all the time, how she called them her 3 miracles. How the last thing she'd said before leaving that day was, I love you to the moon and back. She never came back, Miles whispered. She said to the moon and back, but she never came back. But her love did, I said firmly. It's right here, in you, in the music she taught you, in the way you take care of your brothers, in how strong you are. Her love didn't die with her, baby. It lives in you. He cried until he fell asleep in my arms, and I carried him to bed, my heart breaking for these 3 little boys who'd lost so much. The first week was a war of attrition. They tested me relentlessly. Glue in my shampoo? I laughed and used it as an opportunity to teach them about chemical reactions. A fake snake in my bed. I named him Gerald and put him on the bookshelf as a mascot. Salt in my coffee. I took a sip, smiled and said, interesting flavor profile, very avant-garde. But I also saw past the test to the lonely children underneath. I played with them. Really played. Getting dirty in the sandbox they'd been told was too messy to use. Having lightsaber battles in the hallway, despite Mrs. Patterson's horrified protests. Teaching them card games my siblings and I had played when we couldn't afford anything else. I told them stories about my childhood, the hard parts and the beautiful parts. How Mama had worked double shifts as a nurse, but always made time for Sunday pancakes. How after she died, we'd had family meetings where even 6-year-old Zoe got a vote on decisions. How we'd survived not because we were perfect, but because we loved each other fiercely. Did you ever want to give up? Jasper asked during one of our bedtime reading sessions. Every day, I admitted, but I had 3 reasons not to. 3 kids who needed me. Just like you, 3 need each other. We fight sometimes, Mason confessed. All siblings do. But at the end of the day, you're a team. A triangle is the strongest shape. Can't break it without breaking all 3 sides. That's you 3, Miles, Mason, and Jasper. Unbreakable. I saw them start to change. Small things at first. Mason stopped destroying his structures. Jasper asked for extra reading time. Miles played the piano more, filling the empty house with music that made Mrs. Patterson cry when she thought no one was listening. But the biggest change came when I started talking to them about their mother. Mrs. Patterson had forbidden it. Mr. Whitmore's orders. No mentions of the late Mrs. Whitmore. It upsets the boys. With respect, Mrs. Patterson, the boys are already upset. Pretending their mother never existed isn't protecting them. It's erasing her. And them. Mr. Whitmore won't approve. Then Mr. Whitmore can fire me. But until he does, these boys need to grieve properly. I found photo albums in a locked cabinet, pictures of a beautiful blonde woman with a radiant smile, holding 3 identical babies. She looked like she was made of light. Tell me about your mama, I'd say, and slowly they did. She made funny voices when she read stories, Jasper remembered. She let us help cook breakfast. Even though we made messes, Mason added. She said we were her 3 wishes come true, Miles whispered. We created a memory wall in the nursery, photos of their mother, drawings the boys made of her, a playlist of songs she'd loved. Mrs. Patterson looked horrified when she saw it, but she didn't take it down. The boys flourished. Bedtime became easier. Meals became pleasant. They started asking questions about the world instead of plotting destruction. They laughed, real, genuine, belly laughs that made the manor feel less like a mausoleum. But I knew the real test was coming. Mr. Whitmore would return from London on Friday, and I'd have to face the man who'd let grief turn him into a ghost in his own children's lives. Friday arrived with the weight of Judgment Day. Mr. Whitmore will want a full report, Mrs. Patterson informed me that morning. He'll meet you in his study at 7 p.m. after the boys are in bed. I'll be there. Miss Johnson, she hesitated. You've done something remarkable this week. The boys are different, calmer, happier. I haven't heard them laugh like this since before the accident. But Mr. Whitmore is grieving, I finished. I know. He won't like what you've done. The memory wall, the piano playing. You've brought her back into this house and he can't handle that. Then he'll have to learn. For his sons. That evening I left the boys with Mrs. Patterson. They'd actually hugged her goodnight, a first, and made my way to the study in the west wing. The door was open. Inside, a man stood with his back to me, staring out the window at the grounds. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing an expensive suit like armor. His hair was the same white blonde as his son's, but his posture screamed exhaustion. Mr. Whitmore, I'm Amara Johnson. He turned and I saw eyes identical to his son's, ice blue and full of storms. He was maybe 35, devastatingly handsome in the way wealthy white men often were, but carrying grief like a physical weight. Miss Johnson, his voice was cold, controlled. Mrs. Patterson tells me you've survived a full week. That alone makes you unique. The boys are good kids. The boys are terrors who've driven away 17 caregivers in 6 months. The boys are traumatized children who've had no stable adult presence since losing their mother. His jaw tightened. You've been here 7 days. Don't presume to understand my sons. You're right. 7 days isn't long. But it's 7 days more than you've given them in the last 6 months, from what I understand. The temperature in the room dropped. Excuse me? I met his glare steadily. Your sons are 5 years old. They lost their mother. They need their father. But you're never here. And when you are, you're emotionally absent. You've turned this house into a shrine to grief while your boys suffer. You have no idea what it's like to lose someone. Actually, I do. I lost my mother at 13, had to raise 3 younger siblings alone. The difference is, I didn't have the luxury of running away. Those kids needed me, so I showed up. Your sons need you. He looked like I'd slapped him. My wife died in a car accident on her way to pick up birthday supplies for them. They just turned 2. She was coming back to them. And she never, his voice broke. I can't look at them without seeing her. I can't be in this house without remembering. The pain is unimaginable, I said more gently. I believe that. But those 3 little boys are living with the same pain except they're 5. And every day you hide from it, you teach them their grief is shameful, that their love for their mother is something to lock away. What would you have me do? It came out raw, desperate. Remember her with them. Talk about her. Let them see that it's okay to miss someone and still keep living. You're not dishonoring her memory by being present for your sons. You're honoring it. He sank into his chair, suddenly looking decades older. I don't know how. Start small. Come have breakfast with them tomorrow. Let Miles play piano for you. He's playing the songs his mother taught him. Look at the memory wall we created. Tell them one story about her. Just one. A memory wall? His head snapped up. What memory wall? Should Amara have asked permission before helping the boys honor their mother's memory? Or was she right to do what the children needed, even if it upset their father? What would you have done? Let me know below. I led Alexander Whitmore to the nursery wing, my heart pounding. He'd been furious when I mentioned the memory wall, but I'd refused to back down. If you're going to fire me, fine, but you need to see this first. We stopped outside the nursery common room. Through the doorway, the wall was visible, covered in photos, drawings, memories of a woman who'd been loved fiercely and lost tragically. Alexander froze. In the center was a large portrait of Claire Whitmore holding 3 tiny babies, her smile radiant. Around it, the boys had added their own touches. Crayon drawings titled Mama, handprints in different colors, construction paper hearts with messages in wobbly 5-year-old handwriting. Mama's in heaven, but she still loves us. Jasper. I miss Mama, but Miss Amara says her love is in me. Miles. Mama made the best pancakes. Mason Alexander's hand came up to his mouth. His whole body was shaking. They remember her, he whispered. I thought they were too young. I thought if we didn't talk about it, they'd forget, and the pain would be less. Children don't forget love, I said quietly. They just internalize the silence as shame. Your boys thought they weren't allowed to remember her, that their grief was wrong, that missing her made them bad. God. He moved closer to the wall, touching the drawings with trembling fingers. I've failed them so completely. You've been drowning in your own grief, but you're still here. It's not too late. What if I don't know how to be their father without her? She was the patient one, the nurturing one. I was just the provider. I don't know how to... From Miles' room, music started to play. The haunting melody I'd heard that first night, rendered in a 5-year-old's careful keystrokes. That's her favorite song, Alexander breathed. She played it all the time. How does he... She taught him before she died, and he's been playing it as a prayer, as a way to keep her close. But he stopped because he thought it made you sad. It does make me sad, his voice cracked. But hearing it also makes me remember the sound of her laugh, the way she'd hum it while cooking, the life we had. Then tell Miles that. Tell him it's okay to remember, that she'd want him to keep playing. Alexander moved toward Miles' room like a man walking through water. I followed quietly, giving him space but staying close. Miles sat at the keyboard, completely absorbed in the music, his small face serious with concentration. He didn't notice us at first. When the song ended, Alexander spoke. That was beautiful, son. Miles spun around, his expression shifting from surprise to fear. I'm sorry. I know you said no music. No. Alexander crossed the room and knelt in front of his son. Don't apologize. I should apologize. I should never have taken away your lessons. Your mother taught you that song. She'd want you to keep playing it. Miles' eyes filled with tears. But it makes you sad. It does, but you know what? Being sad about someone means we love them, and your mama deserves to be remembered, even if it hurts. Alexander's own tears were falling now. Can you teach me the song? I want to learn it too. What happened next broke me and healed me simultaneously. Miles scrambled onto the piano bench, and Alexander sat beside him. Together, father and son worked through the melody. Miles teaching, Alexander learning, both crying but also connecting in a way they hadn't in 3 years. When Mason and Jasper heard the music, they emerged from their rooms and gravitated toward their father like flowers to sunlight. Daddy, Jasper whispered, are you staying? Alexander opened his arms, and all 3 boys crashed into him, a tangle of small bodies and huge emotions. He held them like a man who'd finally remembered what mattered. I'm so sorry, he sobbed into their hair. I've been a terrible father. I was so scared of my own pain that I forgot you were in pain too. But Miss Amara helped me remember something important. What? Mason asked. That your mama loved you more than anything in the world, and she'd want me to be here for you, to tell you stories about her, to help you remember how special she was. He looked at me over their heads, gratitude and regret warring in his expression. And how special you are. Can you tell us a story about Mama? Miles asked. A real one. Alexander thought for a moment, then smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him. When you three were born, the doctors told us they were identical triplets. We wouldn't be able to tell you apart. Your mama said, just watch. And from day one, she knew. Miles, you'd sigh when you fell asleep, like you were disappointed bedtime had come. Mason, you'd grip her finger the hardest, like you were afraid she'd disappear. And Jasper, you'd hum. Even as a baby, you'd make this little humming sound when you were content. I still do that, Jasper said excitedly. I know, just like your mama did. Alexander's voice was thick with emotion. You have so much of her in you, all three of you, and I've been missing that because I was too scared to look. They stayed like that for a long time. 4 people who'd been broken by loss, starting the long process of healing together. Eventually, Mrs. Patterson appeared to remind us of bedtime. The boys protested, but Alexander promised to read them stories, all 3 of them, in each of their rooms. As he tucked Jasper in later, I heard him say, Miss Amara is right. You're not wild things that need sending away. You're my 3 miracles, my 3 wishes come true. Just like your mama said. When he finally emerged from the nursery wing an hour later, he found me in the hallway waiting nervously. Miss Johnson, Amara, I don't know how to thank you. In 1 week, you've done what 17 others couldn't. You've reached my sons. You've helped them heal. He stopped, composing himself. You've reminded me how to be their father. They're incredible boys. They just needed someone to see past the terror to the hurt underneath. Why did you see them, when everyone else just saw problems? I thought about my answer carefully. Because I know what it's like to be dismissed. As a black woman, I've spent my life being underestimated, overlooked, judged before people know me. When I heard about 3 boys everyone called monsters, I recognized something familiar. People deciding who you are without actually seeing you. And I thought, maybe I can be for them what I needed someone to be for me. Someone who looks past the surface and sees the person underneath. He was quiet for a long moment. I need to confess something. When the agency sent your application, I almost rejected it immediately. You didn't have traditional credentials. You weren't from the usual elite childcare background. And you were black, I finished. You can say it. I'm ashamed to admit it, but yes, I had preconceived notions about who could care for my sons. I was wrong. Completely, utterly wrong. You're exactly what they needed. What I needed. He met my eyes. Please stay, not just for the trial period, long term. I want to be present for my sons, but I'm still traveling for business, and they need consistency. They need you. On one condition, I said, name it. When you're home, you're really home. Present, involved. They've had enough absent parents, even living ones. They need their father. Done. I'll restructure my schedule. Fewer trips, more remote work, whatever it takes. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal? I shook it. We have a deal. 6 months later, Thornfield Manor had transformed from mausoleum to home. The formal dining room now saw daily use. Breakfast every morning when Alexander was in town. All of us together at the massive table that had felt absurd for 1 person, but perfect for 5. The boys had learned to set the table, with frequent disasters involving dropped plates and spilled juice, but we'd learned to laugh about it. The library had become Storytime Central. Every night, either Alexander or I, or both, would gather the boys for reading. They'd graduated from picture books to chapter books, and we were currently working through the Chronicles of Narratri M. Continuenia. Mason's building projects now stayed intact, displayed proudly throughout the house. Alexander had converted one of the sitting rooms into a proper makerspace. Lego tables, craft supplies, building materials. The castle we'd built that first week still sat on a shelf, preserved behind glass with a small plaque. First creation, Mason Whitmore, with Miss Amara. Miles gave piano recitals every Sunday afternoon. Alexander had hired back his music teacher and now sat in the front row of their makeshift concert hall, the music room freshly renovated, beaming with pride as his son played. Sometimes Claire's favorite song would come up, and we'd all cry a little, but it was the good kind of crying, the kind that meant remembering, not forgetting. Jasper had become our family librarian, organizing books by complex systems only he understood. He'd started writing his own stories too, tales of three brothers who went on adventures and always had each other's backs. Alexander had them bound professionally, and Jasper's face when he saw his words in a real book was pure magic. The memory wall had expanded, taking over an entire hallway. Photos of Claire, yes, but also new memories. The boys with Alexander at the park, family movie nights, birthday parties that were actually celebrated. Life moving forward while honoring the past. Mrs. Patterson had thawed considerably. She'd started teaching Mason to bake. Apparently, she'd been a pastry chef before becoming a housekeeper, and the kitchen now smelled like cookies more often than not. She'd even admitted grudgingly that she'd been wrong about me. "You saw what needed seeing," she'd said one afternoon while we prepared dinner together. "Not many people have that gift." "It's not a gift," I'd replied. "It's just caring enough to look." But the biggest change was in Alexander himself. He'd restructured his entire life around his sons. Business trips were rare and short. He'd started working from a home office, door always open for small visitors who needed Dad's attention. He coached their soccer team. They were terrible but enthusiastic. He read bedtime stories. He showed up. And slowly, carefully, he and I had become something like friends. Our evening debriefs about the boys' day had evolved into longer conversations about loss and healing, about breaking generational patterns, about what it meant to build a family from broken pieces. "You know what I realized?" he said one night after the boys were asleep, as we sat in the library with tea. "I'd been so focused on preserving Claire's memory exactly as it was that I wasn't letting my sons create their own memories. I was keeping her frozen in time instead of letting her live through them." "She does live through them," I said. "Miles has her musical gift. Mason has her creativity. Jasper has her gentle heart. And all three have her capacity for deep love. You're not losing her by moving forward. You're honoring her by raising the children she adored." "When did you get so wise?" I laughed. "Wisdom is just pain that's been processed long enough to turn into perspective. Give it time." "Amara," his expression turned serious. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Sure. Why haven't you built your own family? You're incredible with my sons. You clearly love children, but you've never mentioned dating or wanting kids of your own." I was quiet for a moment, considering how much to share. After Mama died, I spent 15 years being a parent to my siblings. I loved them fiercely, but I also sacrificed everything. College, career, relationships. By the time they were grown and independent, I was 28 and exhausted. I'd never had the chance to figure out who I was outside of caretaker. This job, it's the first time I'm choosing to nurture someone because I want to, not because I have to. And how does it feel? Different. Good. Like maybe all that sacrifice wasn't wasted. Maybe it prepared me for this. For them. I smiled. Your sons have given me something I didn't know I needed. Purpose, that's mine, not just duty. They're not the only ones you've given something to, he said quietly. You've given me my life back, my sons back, myself back. The moment hung between us, charged with something unspoken. Then Jasper's voice called from upstairs. Miss Amara, I had a bad dream. The spell broke. I stood smiling. Duty calls. Amara, Alexander caught my hand. Thank you for everything. Thank you for letting me in, for trusting me with your miracles. The real test came 3 weeks later, when the boy's 6th birthday arrived, the first one Alexander would fully participate in since Claire's death. I want to do this right, he told me nervously, but I don't know how. Claire always handled birthdays. She'd make them magical. Then let's make them magical together. What did she do? He pulled out old photos, Claire decorating an elaborate superhero-themed party, baking a massive cake, organizing treasure hunts. It looked exhausting and perfect. We don't have to recreate exactly what she did, I said gently. We can create something new that honors her spirit, but fits who you are now, who the boys are now. So we planned together. Alexander handled the guest list. Small, just a few kids from their new school, some cousins they'd reconnected with, my siblings who'd become like extended family to the boys. I handled the theme. The boys had voted for space adventure. Mrs. Patterson handled the cake, 3 separate ones so each boy could have his own design. Rocket ship, space station, alien planet. The morning of the party, the boys burst into my room at 6 a.m. "We're 6, Miles announced. "Ancient," I agreed, pulling them into bed with me for birthday cuddles, a tradition we'd established. "Practically elderly." "Miss Amara?" Jasper asked, snuggled into my side. "Do you think Mama knows we're 6? "I think she knows everything about you," I said. "And I think she's so proud of the boys you're becoming." "Daddy says she'd love our birthday plans," Mason added. "He showed us pictures of our other birthdays, when we were babies." "Did it make you sad?" I asked carefully. "A little," Miles admitted, "but also happy, because we got to see her smile, and Daddy smiled too, when he showed us. Before he'd get so sad when we talked about Mama, but now he gets sad happy. Is that weird?" "Not weird at all. That's healing. Being able to hold sadness and happiness at the same time." The party was beautiful chaos. 6-year-olds in astronaut helmets running through the manor, Alexander chasing them while making rocket noises, Mrs. Patterson sneaking them extra cake, my sister Nia teaching them a dance routine she'd choreographed. But the most powerful moment came when Alexander gathered everyone for a toast before cutting the cakes. 6 years ago today, my wife Claire and I became parents to 3 tiny perfect boys. She told me they were our 3 wishes come true, and she was right. Claire died when the boys were 2, and I spent the next 3 years so lost in grief that I forgot to be present for the miracles she'd given me. His voice was steady but emotional. Then Amara came into our lives and reminded me that honoring Claire's memory wasn't about preserving the past. It was about investing in the future she wanted for our sons. So this birthday, I want to make some promises. He knelt in front of Miles, Mason, and Jasper. "I promise to show up, to be present, to tell you stories about your mama and help you remember how much she loved you. I promise to let you be yourselves, musicians and builders and storytellers, not who I think you should be. I promise to create new traditions while honoring old ones. And I promise that you will always, always know you are loved." To the moon and back. He pulled them into a hug as everyone applauded, many of us crying. Then to my shock, Miles pulled away and grabbed my hand. "We have promises too." "Oh?" Alexander looked surprised. The 3 boys stood together, that triplet telepathy clearly at work. Then Miles spoke. "We promise to stop being terrors. We promise to remember Mama but also make new happy memories," Mason added. "And we promise to be the best brothers to each other, because triangles are the strongest shape," Jasper finished. Then in unison, all 3 said, "And we promise to love Miss Amara forever, because she saved us." I completely lost it. Full ugly crying in front of 30 people, not caring one bit. The boys hugged me and I felt Alexander's hand on my shoulder. Solid, grateful, connecting us all. "Group hug," someone shouted. And suddenly we were drowning in children and adults, all piled together, laughing and crying and celebrating not just a birthday, but a family that had been broken and was slowly, beautifully healing. 1 year after I'd walked through the iron gates of Thornfield Manor, I sat in the garden watching the boys play. They'd grown so much, taller, more confident, genuinely happy. They still had hard days, still missed their mother, still struggled sometimes, but they weren't drowning anymore. Alexander found me there, 2 cups of tea in hand. "Thought you could use this," he said, settling beside me on the bench. "Thanks." I took the cup, enjoying the comfortable silence we'd learned to share. "I got a call from the agency today," he said eventually. "They wanted to know if I'd write a reference for you. Said you'd applied for a position with another family." My heart stopped. "What?" "Apparently your contract is up next month and they assumed you'd be moving on to another placement." He looked at me steadily. "Are you?" "No, I mean, unless you want me to." I thought, We never discussed. Amara, he took my hand, his expression intense. I need you to understand something. You're not just the nanny anymore. You're family. The boys love you. Mrs. Patterson adores you. She's already planning your birthday dinner, by the way. And he stopped, seeming to struggle with words. I don't want you to stay because of a contract. I want you to stay because this is home. Because you belong here. With us. Alexander, let me finish. Over this past year, you've done more than save my sons. You've saved me. You've shown me how to live again, how to laugh, how to honor Claire while still moving forward. You've become the person I tell everything to, the one I want to share good news with, the one whose opinion matters most. He took a breath. I'm not saying this to make you uncomfortable. I know there's a power dynamic here, and I'd never pressure you, but I need you to know that if you stay, it's not as an employee. It's as family, as someone we can't imagine life without. I was crying again, seemed to be my default state in this house. I never applied for another position. What? The agency assumed wrong. I never had any intention of leaving. This job, you, the boys, this ridiculous manor, it's home. For the first time since Mama died, I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be. His smile was radiant. So you'll stay. Try to make me leave. He pulled me into a hug, and I let myself sink into it. This man who'd been so broken a year ago and was now whole, this family that had been fractured and was now healing, this life that I'd stumbled into and couldn't imagine leaving. Miss Amara, Mr. Dad, Miles called from across the garden. Come see what we built. We walked hand in hand toward the boys who'd constructed an elaborate fort from branches and sheets. It's our castle, Mason explained, like the one we built that first day, but bigger. And it has a special room, Jasper added, pulling back a curtain to reveal a space they decorated with drawings and photos. For Mama, so she's always with us in our adventures. Alexander knelt, touching the photos they'd arranged, Claire smiling, laughing, living. This is beautiful, boys. Do you want to play with us? Miles asked. You can be the king, and Miss Amara can be the queen, and we'll be the princes who protect the kingdom. Alexander looked at me, question in his eyes. I nodded. We'd be honored, I said. So we crawled into the fort, a billionaire CEO, a former homeless nanny, and 3 boys who'd been labeled monsters but were actually miracles, and played pretend until dinner time, building a kingdom where love conquered loss and family was defined not by blood or circumstance, but by choice. 2 years after that first day, I stood in the manor's grand ballroom, which had been transformed for a very different kind of party. My sister Naya was getting married, and she'd asked to have the wedding at Thornfield. It's where our family comes together, she'd said. Seems right. The boys were ring bearers, looking adorable and solemn in their little suits. Alexander was walking Nia down the aisle since our father had never been in the picture. Mrs. Patterson had made the cake. My younger siblings, Marcus and Zoe, were in the wedding party. As I watched Nia marry the love of her life, I felt Alexander's hand slip into mine. Over the past 2 years, we'd become something. Not employers and employee, not quite a couple, though the lines had blurred considerably. We were co-parents to his sons, best friends, confidants, and something more we'd been too scared to name. She's beautiful, he whispered. She is. Mama would be so proud. She'd be proud of you too. Look what you've built, not just with my sons, but with your whole family. You kept them together when it would have been easier to let them scatter. You gave them roots. We gave each other roots, I corrected. That's what family does. Later, during the reception, the boys pulled me onto the dance floor. Miss Amara, Miles said seriously, we've been talking. Uh-oh, should I be worried? We want to ask you something important, Mason continued. Jasper took my hand. We know you're not technically our mama. We had a mama, and we love her and miss her. But you're mama-like, Miles said. You take care of us and love us and show up every day. So we were wondering, Mason's voice was hopeful, could we call you Mama Amara? Not instead of Mama. Just also. I looked at 3 faces I loved more than I'd ever imagined possible. 3 boys who'd been labeled terrors but had actually been terrified. 3 miracles who'd saved me as much as I'd saved them. I would be honored, I whispered. They tackled me in a hug and over their heads. I saw Alexander watching with tears in his eyes. That night, after the wedding guests had left and the boys were asleep and the manor was quiet, Alexander found me on the terrace overlooking the gardens. "Quite a day," he said, handing me champagne. "Quite a day," I agreed. "Amara, there's something I've been wanting to say, or rather, ask." My heart started racing. "Okay." The boys calling you Mama Amara, it made me realize something I've been avoiding admitting. You are their mother in every way that matters except biology. You've loved them, raised them, fought for them. You've given them stability and security and the confidence to be themselves. He took my hand. And you've given me something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. The ability to love again, to trust again, to believe in second chances. Alexander, I'm not asking you to replace Claire. She'll always be their mother, my first love, a part of our story. But I'm asking if you'd consider writing the next chapter with us, officially, permanently. He pulled out a small box. Amara Johnson, will you marry me? Will you be my wife, the boy's mother, the queen of our imperfect kingdom? I looked at the ring, simple, elegant, perfect. Then at the man offering it, broken once but healing, learning to love with open hands instead of clenched fists. Then at the manor where 3 boys slept peacefully, no longer terrors but treasures. Yes, I said, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on my finger and kissed me like a man who'd found his way home after being lost at sea. You know what's funny, I said when we finally pulled apart. Everyone said no maid survived a day with the Billionaire'S triplets. They acted like the boys were the problem. And they were never the problem. They were children who needed to be seen, who needed love that showed up and stayed, who needed someone willing to look past the chaos to the hurt underneath. You didn't just survive them, Alexander said. You saved them. Saved all of us. No, I corrected, pulling him close. We saved each other. That's what families do. 5 years later, the article in Parenting magazine featured a photo of our family, Alexander and me, Miles, Mason, and Jasper, now 11, and the new addition, a daughter we'd named Claire Amara Whitmore, who just turned 2. The former nanny who revolutionized childcare, read the headline. The article detailed how I'd used my experience with the boys to develop a program for difficult children, a training system that taught caregivers to see past behavior to underlying trauma. The Amara method, they called it, though I still cringed at having my name attached. It's not revolutionary, I was quoted saying. It's just seeing children as people, understanding that so-called bad behavior is usually communication from someone who doesn't have the words yet. Every child labeled a terror is just a child in pain who needs to be seen. The program had been implemented in schools across the country. Suspension rates dropped. Behavioral issues decreased. Turns out treating children with empathy and looking for root causes worked better than punishment. Who knew? Mama Amara, Miles called from the music room, where he was practicing for his upcoming recital at the youth symphony. Can you help with this measure? Mama Amara, Mason yelled from his art studio, the former sitting room, where he was working on a sculpture for his middle school art show. Do you think this looks like a dragon? Mama Amara, Jasper shouted from the library, where he was writing his 3rd novel. Yes, at 11, the kid was a prodigy. How do you spell inevitable? And from the nursery, little Claire. Mama, Mama! Alexander appeared, baby on his hip, laughing. You're being summoned from all directions. Story of my life, I said, kissing him and taking Claire. But what a beautiful story it is. We gathered the boys, all of us piling into the music room. Miles played his piece, complex and beautiful. Mason showed us his dragon sculpture, fierce and creative. Jasper read us a chapter from his book, imaginative and profound. Then we all sat together in the room that had once been cold and unused, now warm and lived in, filled with music and laughter and love that had been hard-won. Tell us the story, Jasper requested, as he did every week, about the day Mama Amara came. So I told it again, How I'd walked through the gates not knowing what I'd find. How 3 little boys had tested me with spiders and glue. How we'd built a family from broken pieces. Were we really terrors? Miles asked. You were children in pain, I said. There's a difference. Are we still terrors sometimes? Mason grinned. Sometimes, Alexander admitted. But now you're our terrors, and we wouldn't have you any other way. Little Claire grabbed my face with both hands. Mama good, she declared. You're all good, I said, looking at each of them. The boys who'd been called monsters, the man who'd been called emotionally unavailable, the baby who'd brought healing full circle. We're all good. We're all enough. We're all exactly who we're supposed to be. To the moon and back, Miles whispered, the phrase Claire had taught them, now our family motto. To the moon and back, we all echoed. And in that moment, in a manor that had once been a mausoleum, but was now a home, surrounded by a family built not from perfection, but from the courage to keep trying, to keep loving, to keep showing up. I knew something profound. The boys hadn't survived me. We'd all survived together. And in surviving, we'd learned to thrive. This story proves that difficult children often just need someone who sees their pain instead of judging their behavior. Have you ever been labeled difficult or known someone who was misunderstood? How did being truly seen change everything? Share your story below. Your words might help someone who's still waiting to be understood.